Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today is quite an interesting day because originally the first video today was going to be covering Aman Vellani's comments on the new not Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel series. I apologize. But I feel that this one is a little more poignant, a little more important than that. So let's just get right into this article. That's Disney CEO ignores Scarlett Johansson lawsuit, calls Disney Plus pay smooth. Bob Chapek defends Disney's hybrid release of Black Widow, saying, quote, "This was the right strategy," and brushes off Johansson's lawsuit as anomalous. So let's just get right into this, and we'll be commenting as we go along. As part of their Q3 earnings call with investors, Disney CEO Bob Chapek played down the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit over the release of Black Widow and claimed that the company's pay to stars over Disney Plus releases was "quote unquote" smooth. Well, of course he's gonna downplay the lawsuit because investors are now gonna get worried. How much money are they gonna lose? How much money are they gonna potentially lose? After multiple delays, Black Widow was finally released on July 9th, both on Disney Plus and in theaters. Despite a strong opening weekend, seeing off fierce competition from the likes of Fast and Furious 9, Johansson's first solo film in the MCU saw its box office revenue decline steeply. Just under 3 weeks later, Johansson filed a lawsuit against Disney, accusing the studio of a breach of contract, which we have covered before extensively. Having been promised a theatrical-only release, the lawsuit also cites a loss of $50 million in earnings based on commission the actress would have received based on the film's box office performance, which she alleges was deeply affected by the availability of Black Widow on Disney+. Again, that is debatable, but when you're talking about a breach of contract suit, you have to give an estimate on the commission that you lost, and the plaintiffs tend to be overly generous with their claims, but that's neither here nor there. Walt Disney have tried to downplay the lawsuit. It has been bad PR for the studio after they initially responded to the lawsuit by besmirching Johansson's character, describing her as callous for not taking into consideration the circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic. Oh yes, I do remember that. Many in Hollywood have since come out in support of both the actress and the lawsuit, including SAG-AFTRA president Gabrielle Carteris, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Carteris or something like that, and Blumhouse founder Jason Blum, with Marvel Studios CEO Kevin Feige reportedly furious over Disney's reaction in Johansson's treatment. Multiple sources, including Variety, claim that during the earnings call, Chapek, who has faced a great deal of the criticism over his handling of the Johansson lawsuit, reportedly danced around the subject and doubled down on the studio's decision to release Black Widow simultaneously on Disney+. Regarding the release, the CEO said, quote, "Bob Iger and I, along with the distribution team, determined this was the right strategy to enable us to reach the broadest possible audience." The CEO also made a point of describing the lawsuit as an outlier, adding that, quote, "Since COVID, we've entered into hundreds of arrangements with talent. By and large, they've gone smoothly. We've figured out ways to fairly compensate our talent so that no matter what the business model, everybody feels satisfied." End quote. It's hard to disagree that the Johansson lawsuit feels anomalous, although Emma Stone was said to be considering a similar lawsuit over Cruella's hybrid release. See, that's all it takes is one. All it takes is one to get the ball rolling, and then all of a sudden, now everybody wants their cut. Again, we are not privy to what the contracts have stipulated if it's a hybrid-only release. So, can I really make a judgment call of who's in the right, who's in the wrong? No, and neither can you, because again, none of us, with the exception of Scarlett Johansson and her legal team and the Walt Disney Corporation, are privy to these contracts. But many believed Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson might consider similar ones if Jungle Cruise had underperformed. However, this proved not to be the case, with Johnson at least backing Disney's decision and suggesting that he was comfortable with his compensation. I'm not one to make a judgment call too early, but in my opinion, Disney probably got out ahead of it, because if Dwayne Johnson is going to be taking him on, that would be way worse than Scarlett Johansson, because let's be honest, Dwayne Johnson is a much bigger movie star than Scarlett Johansson is, at least in my opinion. That said, it seems as though many in Hollywood are treating Johansson's lawsuit as a rallying cry, indicative of a wider pushback by talent over movie studios' attempt to redefine their relationships with them. What she's kind of what the Scarlett Johansson is kind of reminding me of is Lars Ulrich and Metallica going after Napster. Now, what they did was pretty shitty because they were directly attacking the fan base. And that's why the old joke was that Metallica always sounded better on Napster. But again, I can also acknowledge that this lawsuit is completely different than going after, Metallica fans. Notably, this is the first reporting of Disney stars receiving compensation over the lower box office performance, if I can fucking read today. Warner Brothers had previously agreed to buy out stars' contracts as compensation for the lower box office performance of their films. Yes, I believe Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot received $10 million each for the simultaneous release of Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO Max and in theaters. That move came after pushback against the studio, who opted to release their entire slate of films for 2021 on HBO Max. The pushback also led to the studio promising to solely release films in theaters in 2022, and now it seems Disney are following suit, as Chapek also promised exclusively theatrical releases for both Shang-Chi and Free Guy. That said, this is certainly open to change, with Chapek also claiming that Disney are not against making last-minute calls as they see fit. But as I pointed out in my video yesterday about will Shang-Chi go to Disney Plus, if they opt for a hybrid release and renegotiate the contracts, for a fact that Scarlett Johansson's legal team is going to use that as an admission of guilt against Disney. So really, Disney with Shang-Chi is really in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. It's also interesting to note Chapek's use of Bob Iger's name when discussing Black Widow's release. The relationship between Chapek and his predecessor is said to have been a strained one. Iger had a great deal of experience in talent relations, experience that Chapek lacks, having risen up the ranks through Disney's theme park division, with many claiming Iger would have handled the lawsuit in a much better fashion. Yeah, Iger would have fucking settled it by now. Chapek invoking Iger's name definitely feels like an attempt to lend himself credibility, but at this point feels like too little too late. While Chapek may be keen to play down the impact of Johansson's Black Widow lawsuit to investors, the true after effects are yet to be seen and could lead to far greater change, and that is how the article ends. And at this point, if I were Disney, I would just look to settle the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit, because at this point, all of this bad publicity is gonna bite you in the ass at some point. And the old adage is, at some point you have to pay the piper. The only thing is, how much are you gonna run up the bill before it comes due? And guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it right here before I drag this on any longer than it needs to be. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you guys have been following me long enough, I am terrible at ending these videos, so I will just see you guys next time.